Lioness gives birth, then the lion realized he isn't his cub. A lioness in Zimbabwe has broken the world record by giving birth to 8 cubs in one litter, despite being on a contraceptive pill. Named Pasha, she gave birth on November 4th at the Lion and Cheetah Park on the outskirts of Harare, Zimbabwe. She had already given birth to 2 cubs earlier this year and had been immediately put on the pill to control her breeding, so the arrival of 8 cubs was a surprise to staff. Lionesses are known to give birth to 2 cubs at a time and occasionally 4, and vets are now wondering if the contraceptive administered backfired. Now, after giving birth to such a sizable brood, Pasha's now receiving some extra nutrition to boost her health, reported New Zimbabwe. Parks officials only announced the extraordinary birth this week, and the young cubs are being looked after by staff at the zoo. One worker said, "We're suckling them from the bottle each time they wake up from sleep. They still need a lot of milk and warmth, and we're keeping an eye on them every minute." Dr. Hilary Madzikanda, the Zimbabwe National Parks and Wildlife Management Authority's head of scientific services, said, "This has never happened in the history of lions the world over. It is actually a world record. Normally you get 2 cubs per litter, and getting 4 is even very lucky. This one's a record. It's an achievement." It's not rare for wildlife sanctuaries to administer contraceptive pills or injections as a birth control method. In July, a lioness at a zoo in northeast China gave birth to a litter of 6 cubs in what was hailed as a national record. This was an incredible moment. Samba, a beautiful lioness, had been used as a show animal at parties for a long time, but her health started to decline and her caretaker couldn't afford veterinary treatments. Animal rights activists thankfully came to her rescue. Unfortunately, her condition seemed to be too severe, and her new caretakers thought that putting her down would be the only option left. However, at the last minute, an incredible miracle happened. Samba was one of the lions saved by the Agriculture Department of the United States in July 2009. That year, almost all the lions were in bad condition, but exceedingly terrible was Samba. She was lighter than air, weak and frail. Her rescuers thought she had almost no chance, yet they took a gamble and still helped her. They wanted to enable her to at least get better. Samba was rescued from an entertainment center in Texas. Her task was to give her employer a lot of money by performing at high-profile events and parties. Samba was not the only lion in this entertainment center, but she was the lion with the most involvement and suffering. Samba's caretaker was exceptionally cruel to his lions. Sadly, for most of her life, Samba was held prisoner in Texas. She was already working lioness since she was a little cub. She began working in the entertainment industry and was featured as a cub in photo shoots. Samba was a wild animal that led to a labor-intensive domestic life, and her health and welfare were generally affected. Samba had difficulty with coordination and couldn't stand up very well herself. Her rescuers knew that her muscles were weak, causing her problems while she was walking. She could barely raise her head to eat water or drink it. She had completely lost her appetite and her desire to live was utterly gone. Recently, Blackfish documentary uncovered fishers who stole baby whales from the sea and sold them in places like SeaWorld for profits. The background of Samba is sad and not all unusual. Almost all of these species are not adequately cared for and eventually live short, miserable lifetimes as animals are continually exploited for entertainment. Samba's rescuers had hoped she wouldn't experience the same misfortune. As Samba was in terrible condition, the U.S. Department of Agriculture decided to hand her over to an animal welfare organization called the InSync Exotics Wildlife Rescue and Education Center. It is a company that helps in the recovery of stranded animals and their treatment. The news hasn't been good. InSync said they would consider seriously euthanizing her if Samba's health didn't improve. Samba would probably not be able to live. They took Samba to InSync and settled there. Initially, she didn't respond well to treatment. All the same, her rescuers were eager to save Samba's life. Nor is she allowed to eat food independently, so the team sits down to feed her by hand. "I have to go to Samba for 2 weeks to feed her by hand. I'll carry meatballs, stuff them down her throat," InSync's founder said. Although the InSync team did their best to help Samba, it didn't seem like she was getting much better. Her health seemed nearly the same as it had been before she arrived. She had very little muscle strength, and so as she walked, her knees would fall from below, an InSync member stated. This proved to be a very tough journey. InSync's rescue staff had previously worked in unfortunate circumstances with animals, but had never seen such a stressful situation. They weren't able to help Samba get better. They also believed she was completely giving up. Samba stopped moving after days of exhaustion and a lack of energy. It seemed that her condition was deteriorating. All she had eaten, she would throw up. For the rescuers, this made it very difficult. The InSync team struggled. They did everything in their power to help Samba, but nothing seemed to succeed. They decided to consider the USDA's advice to euthanize this big cat after a couple of weeks of hard work. Samba's life had become painful and tough. The team had to deal with the fact that the kindest thing to do would be to end it. Samba dying is something the team did not want to happen. She was a beautiful animal that had spent all her life in cages. They allowed her to live her life. Samba wasn't like most lions. Her fur, which set her apart from other big cats, was very white. Her former owner very much appreciated her blonde hair. In Timbavati in South Africa, lionesses of this hue can be found. NSYNC was ready to euthanize Samba when new information was received. The NSYNC team exposed this stunning lion. It was reported that Samba had a condition known as toxoplasmosis as well as vitamin A deficiency. It means the blood of Samba had parasites. The illness is fatal of members of the feline family. Now, because they knew what was happening to her, she had to take her medication. Toxoplasmosis is an infection that occurs commonly in cats. This infection occurs when there is insufficient strength in the immune system to prevent illness. Samba's immune system as the disease progresses has been weakened by poor treatment for years. Signs of toxoplasmosis include decreased coordination, disorientation, anorexia, lethargy, breathing problems, swollen lymph nodes, and possible blindness. If not correctly and quickly addressed, the illness can be fatal. In both cats and individuals, toxoplasmosis can spread throughout the body to parts such as the lungs, eye, and brain. It stays in the body for a long time, which is seen in human symptoms such as flu, muscle aches, swollen lymph nodes, and other few common ailments that could mean anything. However, the disease is relatively mild in humans. In the case of Samba as a lion, that illness meant something else. Simba's caretakers immediately began her treatment with antibiotics. It took a little time to get a prescription, and Samba started her antibiotic regimen late, but for Samba it was the only chance. A stubborn lion taking a range of antibiotics is not easy to have. Samba was a challenge, and the NSYNC team would sometimes struggle for an hour to give her medicine. Just after she began taking her antibiotics, she started to feel better. Eventually, she could walk and eat on her own. Of course, all Samba's caretakers thought that was because of the medication she was taking, her health improved. But because of another thing, she got healthier so quickly, a reason nobody had known. Another form of treatment. Although cats appear as colder creatures, lions are natural predators. They too must be surrounded by a pride. They must never be alone. Lying all day together in wild lions, feeding together, playing together, and hunting together. It didn't make it easier for Samba to recover outside of their natural environment, but the NSYNC team was smarter. A separate enclosure adjacent to the area where Samba was stayed in the NSYNC facility. The lion in the enclosure next to Samba was helped by someone to feel happier and healthier. They were surprised when the NSYNC staff realized what was going on between the two. It was a lion, a magnificent male lion to be exact. It seems that Samba has developed a crush on her friend. These two had from the very beginning formed a close bond. Thanks to her passion for Khan, Samba was able to move on quickly. She had renewed her will to live now that she had a relationship with another lion. Khan has had a history close to Samba's. Khan is a 6-year-old lion who was rescued just a few months before Samba with NSYNC. Khan was like Samba, a lion working in the film industry in Texas. He was humiliated by his handlers as well, and he was still in bad condition when he came to the rescue center like Samba. Perhaps because they had experienced similar circumstances, they could communicate so easily. Much like Samba, Khan was a performance animal. He used to entertain the crowd at private parties by displaying his roar balancing on his legs. His owners took him to various events in the area, and he often participated in multiple events a day. The entire journey and hard work made him sick, but he was still forced to perform. Khan was actually in a bad state when the NSYNC team saved him. He was malnourished, weighing about 100 pounds less than the average lion of his generation. He'd been beaten and overworked by his master. He was trapped in a tiny cage that influenced the growth and vulnerability of his muscles. The circumstances disturbed him, so he did a shocking thing. The film industry is notorious for exploiting and genuinely taking advantage of animals. In Khan's case, his new owners had oppressed him so much. These wild animals aren't born for the show, and their owners often don't have resources or finances to take proper care of them. Animals are not fed the right meat or are frequently supplied by markets with perishable foods donated or sold. In Khan's case, he wanted to be rescued, and luckily it was a new beginning for him. Out of boredom and annoyance because of how he was treated and how he'd been made to live, Khan the lion chewed his tail. The tip of his rear had swollen completely. If he hadn't been saved in time, he would have fallen ill and died. He thought he had a bone disorder as well, which made it hard for him to walk. Kihi explained when Khan arrived, his tail end was completely chewed off and he was skinny. Khan was very aggressive when he first arrived at the rescue center. The NSYNC party had great trouble communicating and supporting him. He became very aggressive when it came to feeding time because he did not receive enough food when he lived with his former owner. In many instances, Khan was a very dangerous lion. Workers had to use extreme caution when feeding him or treating him. Lions are wild animals that once their natural mindset and instincts have been interfered with, live off the land, and they will become more aggressive. We all know a little too well how angry we all feel when we're hungry. Now imagine the will of hunting the wholly taken away from you. He would soon, however, overcome this, and a particular progressive path was on his way. Khan was a warrior. Unlike Samba, he never lost his will to live. Soon this vicious beast became a friendly and happy animal, and he quickly recovered. Khan combined well with the other lions in the rescue center and seemed to enjoy his new retired life pretty well. His violence was primarily due to his health conditions, and now that complications were remedied, he was much less angry. Khan felt secure in the NSYNC rescue center. He became so strong that he had to create a cinder block staircase for the center workers to get to his shelter quite comfortably. He had even more space for creation and relaxation now. The feeling contrasted dramatically with Khan's cramped cage. Khan now needed a friend he could play with. Lions are very social creatures and tend to be in packs, so it's alarming that Khan and Samba have been isolated from other lions for so long. They formed a bond immediately when Khan and Samba were put side by side. The friendship inspired Samba's healing. Khan's fighting spirit started to rub off on her. Both of these wildcats had claimed the same kind of tragedy, but the conditions of both were different. It was easy to treat him and to get him settled in his new environment. Samba, though, was very ill-formed. Samba had almost gone. While both of these lions suffered a great deal of discomfort, given their actions, they were affected differently. It may not be in the wild, it may not be in their natural environment, but they are together and they've given each other a fresh start in their way. The two of them have been able to create a new life for themselves. They are also protected, comfortable, and very well taken care of by NSYNC employees. The team, however, had an even better idea for the couple. Kihi stated, "Over time, they all recovered and grew in perfectly developed lions. We have completed our new enclosure in the meantime. They've now become very well grown. Khan and Samba live side by side as intended. Both took the next step in their relationship. Who knows where this might go?" The friendship of Khan and Samba became more than a friendship. Both spend a lot of time with each other. Kihi stated, "Samba's been showing off for Khan the next months and Khan's stuff was strutting for her. These two lions, if you believe lions would fall in love, had feelings for each other. Have you seen The Lion King? Indeed they can." The team at NSYNC saw that the two lions loved each other. They wanted to let them date and share a room, but they had spayed Samba before they did, so no fun accidents would happen. No more lions born in captivity are expected. "We did short dates every day. Eventually dates were prolonged and afterward undisturbed," Vicky, who works at NSYNC, stated. Vicky went ahead and explained, "And we let them stay together at night. We've allowed them to marry after 3 months. They created a special habitat where they spend their wait time together. Samba seems to be the boss of their relationship." Everyone at NSYNC was so happy they found both of them. Samba and Khan were finally content and safe. But for the lovebirds, this is only the beginning. Do you think they'd later grow apart? This newlywed couple was struggling to get enough of their own. Samba has a great passion for her husband. She also loves playing with wooden boxes and receiving from her caretakers a lot of affection. Khan was very possessive of Samba. He gets jealous as other lions look at her and he does everything in his power to defend her. The unbelievable happened as another lion joined the mix. He's fortunate to have a wife that's as powerful and wonderful as Samba, Khan realizes. Khan only needs to ensure that she's safe. Then Khan let the man know she's with him. He mocks and charges them sometimes, Vicky said. Such two creatures that have been rescued make a great couple, which begs the question, what happened to the abusers? The man who abused Samba, Khan, and others is no longer allowed to possess huge cats or wild animals. He lost his desire to retain lions, which affected his business and his income potential. And then some animal rights activists thought that he should be more harshly punished. They claimed he should spend time in jail or be disciplined, at least for what he did to these magnificent animals. Fortunately, this story beginning in miserable circumstances with the animals finished with love. Samba was almost euthanized, but now she's having the best years of her life with her favorite lion partner. This saga gives us confidence in happy endings and makes us want to do what we can to ensure that no lions are taken out of their homes and overworked.